What if the energy you're feeling right now, the urge to shed old patterns, move forward, or finally take up space, isn't random at all, but a larger cycle you're meant to work with, not against? Today's episode is about the Lunar New Year, the Chinese Zodiac, and how understanding seasonal cycles, elemental energy, and symbolism can help us understand ourselves more deeply. This is not about predicting the future. It's about awareness, intention, and learning how to align with the energy that's already moving through us. Come join us. Women's Wellness Authority is a podcast for women who want to come home to themselves, physically, emotionally, and energetically, while exploring grounded, root-level approaches to healing. In each episode, we explore the many layers of wellness through thoughtful conversations with experts, healers, and practitioners, helping you better understand what your body is communicating. This podcast is about empowerment, offering practical tools and wisdom to help you thrive in all areas of your life. Let's rewrite the rules of wellness together, step into your power, reclaim your health, and discover what it means to truly thrive from the inside out. Welcome back to Women's Wellness Authority. I'm your host, Diana Ruszkowski, and today we're stepping into a conversation about cycles, energy, and how understanding the rhythms around us can help us better understand ourselves. As we move through the Lunar New Year, there's often a collective feeling of transition, a sense that something is shifting, shedding, or asking to move forward. And unlike the Western calendar, the lunar calendar invites us to slow down, reflect, and align with natural cycles rather than forcing change before we're ready. In today's episode, we're exploring what the Lunar New Year really represents, how the Chinese Zodiac works, and how animals, symbolism, and the 5-element theory can offer insight into our energy, relationships, and decision-making. We'll also talk about the transition from snake energy, which is what we just came out of, a season of wisdom, introspection, and shedding, into the horse, amplified by the fire element. I can't talk. Which brings movement, visibility, and momentum. This conversation isn't about prediction or rigid belief systems. It's about awareness, learning how to work with energy instead of pushing against it, and using these frameworks as tools for intention, reflection, and alignment in everyday life. And my guest today is Tori McBrien, a very dear friend. She is a very talented interior designer and certified Feng Shui practitioner who really blends modern design with ancient wisdom to create spaces that support the people who live in them. And her work sits at the intersection of environment, energy, and well-being, making her the perfect guide for this conversation. And in honor of our conversation today, Tori, I am wearing the Chinese red and a little bit of gold on my earrings for some inspiration.
Love it. You came dressed for the occasion.
I did. I sure
Thank you,
did.
Diana. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, can you share your story and how you found your way into Feng Shui, the lunar calendar, and working with energy in such an intentional way? I think it's really cool.
It's kind of always been in my blood, is what I tell people. I have a lot of family history in Asia. My grandparents were both born in China. My father was born in the Philippines, and all of them lived in Japan for a long time. And then I read a book, Shogun, in like 6th grade and fell in love with the culture. And from there, I decided to become a Japanese major in college. I studied in the martial arts. And so I've always had this affinity for Asian cultures and philosophies. And then out of college, I worked in the fashion industry and traveled the globe looking at factories all over Asia, whether it was Hong Kong, India. And that really continued to open my eyes to different Asian cultures. But it wasn't really until I'd opened my interior design business and we all got into our COVID bubble where we really started to feel our spaces and how we live in them. That's really kind of where Feng Shui came into play for me. I had gone back to school to get my master's in interior design, and we were talking about environmental psychology and sustainability and how materials and textures and all these things affect you. And I'd always felt like I designed with those things in mind, but I didn't have words for it.
You just instinctively kind of did it. You incorporated it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I would walk into a client's space and feel that something would be off. As we talked about it, I could tell what needed to be done. It felt more of sort of a gut reaction than I had a very specific formula to follow, but I didn't know what that was called. until in my classes, I heard about Feng Shui and then delved in deeper. And it's really about creating environments that support the people that live there. So people always ask me, oh, what's your design style? I don't have one because it's not my home. It's your home. You have to live there. It has to work for you. And what supports you is going to be different than what supports me. So Feng Shui really gave me the language to be able to describe how I was designing. So I think it's ingrained education for me. And it was sort of a natural extension of what I was already doing.
I love that. Yes. And I've also been a client of yours and benefited from some work too, and definitely saw shifts and change in the energy in my house from things that we did, which was really cool.
And it doesn't take a lot. It's not like you have to redo your whole kitchen to make a change. You can move a picture frame, or it can just be really, really small changes,
it was minor stuff that we did.
Yeah, which I think is so important that people know. It's not just, oh my gosh, I'm going to come in and tell you have to redo your whole house. No, we're just going to make little changes here and there and see how things shift.
So can you walk us through the Chinese Zodiac, how it works, just in case people are not familiar with it? I'm not as familiar, actually, so I've been super excited to have this conversation. And then how is the Chinese Zodiac different than like the Western calendar and astrology?
The Western astrology and Chinese astrology, they're both symbolic systems, right? But they ask very different questions of us, I think. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert in either. But from my understanding and my perceptions of them, Western astrology is more identity-based. It sort of focuses on who you are, behavioral patterns, and kind of recognizing those. It's kind of a snapshot of who you are, and it's very inward-facing. It's also based on your sun sign, or like based on the month that you're born for the most part.
And that's like I'm a Scorpio, right?
Yeah, I'm a Virgo.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we say Western, that's kind of what we're referring to.
Yeah. And a lot of people know those about themselves. And I've looked at my horoscope in the past, but I have always gravitated to the Chinese astrology, which is more of a time and environment based. It is based on the birth year, not necessarily the month. So it's already a broader spectrum, but it reflects your broader social environment and kind of how you move through the world. So how your energy moves through the world and interacts with others. It can kind of help you understand why life might feel a certain way to you because of the energy that's coming in or the energy that you're projecting. So in Chinese astrology, there are what everyone knows as the 12 zodiac animals. So you're probably familiar with at least some of those, but they each represent different survival strategies or behavior patterns or ways of responding to the environment. So, for example, if you think about the snake, which is the year we were just in, we'll get more into that later, but they are very observant. They're discerning, they're wise, they kind of slowly move through life. They're cautious until, they need to strike. So if you think about those characteristics, that's kind of the energy from last year. It's more introspective and quiet.
And so with the 12 animals, though, just to be clear, those cycles are different animals per year.
Right. So there's one animal per year. So it goes on a 12-year cycle.
Gotcha.
So we are kind of towards the end of, kind of in the middle of that 12-year cycle right now. It starts with the rat and ends with the pig. So we're kind of in the middle, and we'll kind of get through those.
Follow the same Western calendar? So, because the New Year is technically when?
So for the Chinese Lunar New Year, it's a little bit different. It varies because it follows, like you said before in your intro, kind of the Earth's natural cycles. It's a 3,000, if not longer, year-old system. It was started in agrarian society, so it was following agriculture. And it's like about a 2-week period, somewhere between the middle of January and the middle of February, depending on the lunar cycles. And it's really that halfway point between the winter solstice and, or kind of not the halfway point, the tipping point, I would say, of when you really start to feel like we're heading into spring. In the Western calendar, we sort of assume January 1st is the time to make our resolutions, and that's when we're going to start over. But really, I don't know about you, but for me, I want to hunker down in January. I want to recover from the holidays. I want to burrow. It's cold out. We still have a foot of snow here, and it's February. Like, that's not the time I want to be like, yeah, I'm going to go start working out. That's not the time for me to start making resolutions. That's just me.
I have always felt that way, though. And the more I've learned about this, it does make more sense right around now. Like, I have been burrowing and like digging in on my business and really just planning.
Yeah.
instead of planning, which always felt weird to me, planning in like October.
If you think about like the agrarian cycles, agricultural cycles, you're not planning for the new year necessarily in October. That's when you're reaping and you're sowing and you're storing and you're kind of nesting to get ready for the winter. The winter is really when you're quiet and you can take the time to reflect and start to plan. And then Lunar New Year is all about kind of sweeping out the dust from the winter, clearing things out, and prepping for what the new year is going to bring and what it is that you want to achieve in the new year. Actually, in China, they basically take 2 weeks off to travel home. They clean their homes, they celebrate. Of course, there's the parades and the fireworks and all these other things, but it's really about being with family, with their communities, and cleaning things out in preparation for the new year.
Have you ever participated?
I have not, sadly, but I really want to.
On the bucket list then?
Definitely on the bucket list. I mean, we do things here in my house. Like my kids, we all get involved. We build our Chinese New Year. We have our Lunar New Year Legos that we get out and we decorate. We always get Chinese food for the year. And we do a big clean and a clearing of the house. We do a citrus peel clearing. So we kind of do it in our own way, but definitely not with the big... Should head to Chinatown for that. I think it'd be amazing.
Yeah. You mentioned the 12 different animals. Can we kind of maybe go through each animal and maybe just describe like the characteristics, if that's the right word, of each animal? Because for those who are listening, it might be interesting for them. You guys can actually go on Google or ChatGPT and you type in your birth date and it'll tell you what your Chinese zodiac sign is. So this way, if they look up, they can get a sense of, oh, okay, a dog is X, Y, and Z. Can we kind of just run through the 12? I feel like that'd be cool for the listeners to hear.
Yeah, I just want to make one caveat though. When you go to Google your birthday, because of the lunar cycles and because it shifts every year, make sure that if you're born in January or February, that's putting it broadly, anywhere in January or February, type in your full birthday. So January 13th, 1993 or whatever, because it may determine which Lunar New Year you were born in.
Okay.
So like I looked up, I think 1993 or 1998 before this call just to test. And the 13th was one animal and the 22nd was another animal. But this year, the Lunar New Year is so late. So anyone born before February 17th is snake. Anyone after February 17th is horse. Okay. So it changes every year. If you're born early in the year, just double check.
So it's not like the Western culture, which January 1st is the beginning of New Year.
No, it shifts every year based on the lunar cycles.
Based on the lunar cycles.
So that's the one thing I will say when you go to look things up. Little tip there. But yeah, let's go through the 12 animals. I'll give you a couple words kind of to give you the characteristics of them. And the first one up is rat. So the rat is resourceful, strategic, and thoughtful, followed by the ox, which is steady, reliable, and persistent. The tiger is courageous, protective, and independent. The rabbit is sensitive, diplomatic, and intuitive. The dragon is a visionary, confident, and charismatic. The snake is wise, observant, and discerning. The horse is energetic, freedom-loving, and expressive. The goat, or also known as the ram, is compassionate, creative, and supportive. The monkey is clever, curious, and innovative. The rooster is detail-oriented, honest, and disciplined. The dog is loyal, ethical, and protective. And the pig, or boar, is generous, easygoing, and sincere. So if you really think about each of those animals, those archetypes, really fit the bill. Like a rooster, they are absolutely detail-oriented and disciplined. They are getting up with the sun every day to crow, right? So things like that. When you think about the animals, it makes sense.
Yeah. I am a dog, so those 3 words were very insightful and right.
Yeah.
Now that we have all 12 of the animals, you kind of talk about them a little bit more as like symbols or archetypes. Can you explain what that means?
So they're not just kind of cute little animals that we can relate to, but they're energetic teachers. So it's a way of using, like, for example, I'm a pig. I go through life easygoing most of the time, but I am generally sincere and generous. But in certain ways, in certain situations, I understand that I might need to approach a situation with those qualities. But let's say, we'll get into this a little bit more later, but I know the year is going to be tougher for me because it's a clash year or whatever. I know, okay, this is how you're generally...
the horse and the pig, because we're going into a horse year, right?
Yeah. It sort of just helps you navigate different situations or the year, you know that this energy is coming. This horse energy is going to be forward moving and very fast. And there's a lot of momentum, but I'm easygoing. So I'm kind of okay. I'm just going to go along with the flow, but it may still feel a little fast for me. So you start to combine the energy of the year, so going into the horse, with your own energy and thinking about how you can navigate throughout the year. And again, every animal represents like a survival strategy or a strength. And sometimes it's not a weakness. We call them shadow traits because nothing is a weakness. It's a chance to grow. It's an opportunity to learn from ourselves or to try something new and different.
I feel like, when I read about the snake energy, it's matching perfectly with basically my life the last year, just like shedding my old version of myself. And I am so excited for the year of the horse because I am ready to move forward and gain a lot of momentum. And then when we were talking, you were sharing that the dog and the horse actually work really, really well together. And there's elements too, which maybe, I know we don't want to go into too much detail, but the Zodiac doesn't necessarily stand alone. So many people might have seen or heard of like the snake and the fire horse. What was it? A water snake, right?
We just came out of wood snake.
A wood snake and then moving into a fire horse.
Fire horse. Yeah.
So can you maybe just talk about those 5 elements too? And I think those elements also work really hand in hand with elements within Feng Shui, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in Chinese metaphysics, there's what's called the 5-element theory. And that is one of the main pillars of Feng Shui, but it also applies to the Chinese Zodiac. So to kind of bring it back, the 5-element theory, the elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And they all have their own characteristics. So wood is all about growth and vision and expansion. So if you think about a wood snake year, you are quiet and discerning, and you're going to be shedding. But at the same time, it's all in the goal of growth and vision and expansion, which is exactly what you were describing that you were doing, right? Fire is all about visibility, passion, and expression. So if you think about a fire horse year, it can be very intense because you've got this fiery, passionate, lot of momentum kind of energy. Yeah, you look ready. It's a very different feel from the wood snake year. Just to go through the other elements, earth is all about grounding, nourishment, and stability. You think about like very nourishing soil or the stability of a huge mountain. Like you can walk up to a rock wall, you're not going anywhere. So there's kind of a dichotomy in all of these. For metal, it's clarity, boundary, and refinement. So you can have a sharp sword that's going to cut through things, or you can have a beautiful piece of jewelry. So there's, again, that dichotomy. And then water is all about rest, intuition, and depth. So when you start to add the 5 elements on top of the characteristics of the zodiac animals, it gets very, very layered and nuanced. With the 5 elements, it changes a little bit differently, where the zodiac animals, it's one animal a year for 12 years, and then it repeats. The elements, there are 2 years of each element, and then after 10 years, it repeats. So we just had 2 wood years.
Oh.
We have a fire horse year, and then we have another fire year.
What comes after the horse?
Oh my goodness, you're quizzing me now, girl. The goat and the ram. So it will be a fire goat year in 27, but then it will switch to earth. Earth comes after that. So then we'll have 2 years of earth. So when you combine all of those, you have a 60-year cycle where no year is going to feel the same. Because a wood horse year is going to feel very different than a fire horse year versus a fire monkey year. You can see how it's like all nuanced, and there's all this intuition that you got to kind of ferret through and dig through to get to kind of what the energy is going to feel like.
So 60-year cycle. I was actually just thinking, okay, every 12 years, it's a different animal, but no. So every 2-year cycle for the element. And then so cool. So hopefully everyone will experience within a lifetime every single one of those cycles.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing about this year actually is that it's a double fire year because the horse's natural element is fire. Plus you've got the fire element on top. So it could feel very, very intense for.
Well, and now I'm a fire dog.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying you're going to feel it.
By the end of the year, I'm going to need.
So that's something we're going to talk about is like how to avoid that burnout because you don't want to flame out. So you got to learn ways to curb it. But
Okay, so we're moving from the wood snake energy into a fire horse energy, and we talk about what that transition represents. I mean, we kind of mentioned it in some of the characteristics, but I think it's important because when this comes out, we are going to be just a few days past when the Lunar New Year kicks off. So technically, does that mean, okay, snake is over, I'm done shedding? Or is there a little bit more?
there's a transition.
There's a
Yeah,
transition. Okay.
yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I've been telling people that I think I've been feeling the fire horse since like late December. And a lot of my other feng shui friends have been saying that too. Like it's coming in hot. Like it's definitely there. So I guess the way to think about it is, the snake energy that we're leaving behind. It's inward, it's strategic. And the way to think about it is like, what is it that no longer fits? If you haven't had the time to sit and kind of reflect as you and I have, this is a great time now, even though, again, when this comes out, we'll already be technically into the Lunar New Year kind of celebrations. But think about what no longer fits, what feels too tight, like what's uncomfortable. Is it something in your business? Is it something that's no longer serving you and your family?
Relationships, friendships?
Yeah, I was going to say it could be like a toxic friend that you don't need to be nasty and cut off, but you're just like, don't make the time for as much, something like that. You just kind of maybe reflect, whether you meditate, go for a walk outside. That always kind of brings stuff up for me. And if you wanted to get really deep, you can always, ask yourself, like, what is it about myself that I'm avoiding, or what else do I need to shed to help me grow? For me in my business, similar to you, I hired a business coach and I worked on strategy to help me become more efficient and shed all the stuff that I didn't need and kind of fine tune my hours and my operations and things like that. And now we're starting to run with that plan and use that momentum to carry it.
All steam ahead with that horse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Riding the horse.
Yeah. I keep thinking of a pig riding a horse.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yep. I'm sure I could come up with something and,
I'm sure ChatGPT could too.
That's what I was thinking. So that's kind of what we're leaving behind. What are we shedding? Are old habits that no longer serve us, or maybe it's people, maybe it's foods, who knows, whatever speaks to you. And then moving forward it could be fast moving, but it's going to be visible. There's a lot of momentum to help you carry that through. The addition of the fire, though, can increase urgency, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It'll also help people be more visible and no longer need that liquid courage. You've got that fire courage in you, so that'll help too.
Sometimes to move fast, instead of being slow paced and really thinking about it, sometimes you move quickly through and then your decision is made faster, right?
Yeah.
Instead of pondering on something maybe you would have in the past. And so that can help propel you forward as well.
Yeah. And for some people, it might feel too fast. You might feel restless, or you might be less tolerant of being still and quiet. And so that could feel uncomfortable. But you may also feel like a desire for freedom and to get out there and to put yourself out there in different ways. So it can be a positive in a lot of ways.
So I think what's important, listeners, is to probably sit with yourself and whatever way you think is right? It could just be a meditation. It could be locking yourself in your closet, going for a walk, and just asking yourself those questions. Like, how have I been feeling the last couple months? And maybe this might make sense to you. Oh, well, I just feel like I'm not my old self. Like, I don't want that anymore. I don't want this anymore. And I think even just that self-reflection is growth, so that you can kind of move into this new energy with a positive mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's so important too.
Yeah, don't suppress any of it. Just kind of let it flow and kind of go with that movement and see where it takes you. Just be intentional about it. Like, you could sprint forward. Like, I was thinking about this, like a horse is galloping. You're in control of the horse, but if you don't keep enough control, the horse is going to go where it wants to go. So you still have to kind of guide it to the final destination or your goal. You have to be able to rein it in where needed, even though you've got that forward momentum. So,
but remaining in control. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
But too much.
Too much, and you're running off a cliff. Like, who knows where that horse is going? So
maybe if you're an experienced rider, you can just go for it. But I'll probably be holding the reins. Okay, so for someone who's feeling restless, energized, or ready for change, maybe just talked about how you can really work with it rather than resist it. I love that analogy you just shared. But if I'm just like really anxious about how I'm feeling. Do you have any recommendations how to move through that? Or is it the thing you suggested?
So I think sort of starting overarching the fire element, and because it's a double fire year, that's kind of where you're going to feel where most of the restlessness is coming from. So not as in tune with the Lunar New Year stuff and the Zodiac, but on the 5 element side, bringing in water to tame down that fire element would be really helpful. And you can do that by bringing in black in certain places. Like if you're feeling restless and anxious, throw on a black sweater. Like that will it will cool you down.
What do you mean bring water into? Into what?
Into your life, whether it's in clothing. If you feel like your business is out of control, bring water, which is represented by the colors black, flowy, wavy shapes, pictures of water. So if you feel like your work life is out of control, put a picture on your desk of you on a beach vacation by the water, like something that makes you feel calm. Go take a bath. This is actually what I love. When I'm super stressed out, if you go run your wrists, like just throw your wrists right here under cool water, it cools your whole body down because it cools the blood and just that flows through your body and just kind of cools you down for a few minutes. So if you're ever feeling anxious or restless, that helps too.
Wear black, incorporate things that are wavy, pictures of the ocean.
Yep. You can even listen to water sounds.
So if it's getting too overwhelming, these are the things that you can
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll help a lot because I just think the fire energy is going to be so dynamic this year. I mean, not to mention the horse, but I just feel like the fire is compounding everything on top. So
the double fire means because it's a fire year this year and a fire year next year.
No, so double fire is because it's a fire year this year and the horse's natural element is fire.
Oh,
Your horse is already fiery and then you throw more fire on top of that.
Gotcha.
You got a bonfire. So we don't want it to burn too hot.
And it doesn't matter that next year's fire too.
No, it'll still be fiery, but it will most likely be calmer because the goat and the ram do not have the same characteristics as the horse.
Yeah, goat can't move the way a horse can move.
Right. It's going to be different. The fieriness will kind of taper off next year. And then we're going to go into, if you think about in the cycle of the elements after fire, when that dies down, you've got embers and then ash, and ash becomes earth. So it becomes very grounding and nourishing. So the 2 years after that, it'll be sort of like a rebuilding, germinating kind of time period. So, but we'll do that in our podcast over the next few years.
Yes.
We'll get to those.
I love that. How can listeners start incorporating lunar and elemental awareness into their daily lives?
Well, I was wondering if I would be able to give all of the animals a little piece of advice individually. So if you're open to that, I thought it would be nice for your listeners too.
So it's like if you're a pig, this is what you would suggest we can incorporate into our daily lives.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not quite a horoscope, but it's a way of interacting with the fire horse energy this year. And so this is kind of a little tidbit for all of your listeners. Hopefully everyone, unless you've been driving, have had a chance to look up what your animal is so you have an idea. But again, I want to preface this. I am not an expert in all of these. This is kind of my intuitive thoughts as I sat and kind of meditated on these. And this is kind of the advice I would give Feng Shui clients. So,
okay. Love it.
All right. For all you rats out there, we're starting with you. It will be a challenging year. And this is something we didn't talk about, but could talk about after, is the rat and the horse are not the best of friends. So the rat and horse actually sit opposite each other on the zodiac wheel, which creates conflict. So expect some change and instability rather than stability. So simplify your commitments, avoid reactive decisions, and don't force outcomes that don't feel right. So kind of take your time with that. For the ox, it's a neutral to challenging year for you because the ox prefers steady, kind of slow progress, and that conflicts with the horse's need for speed. So slow and steady this year wins the race for you, ox. Just protect your boundaries and your routines instead of trying to keep up with the horse. For the tiger, you're going to have a good year. You are, again, in a compatibility triangle, if you will, with dog and horse. So that supports courage, leadership, and bold action. And it's a great year to step forward confidently, but act with integrity. Don't get egotistical with it, tigers. For you rabbits, it's a neutral year for you. Your gentle nature can feel overwhelmed with the intensity of the horse and the fire. So just make sure you create emotional and energetic buffers and try to create boundaries to avoid burnout. For you dragons, it's a good year for you. You thrive in kind of higher energy, dynamic environments. And so you benefit from all the visibility that comes from the fire and the horse. So just be strategic about where you choose to shine. That's supported, but just make sure you have clarity of purpose more than the amount that you're in the spotlight. For snake, or what we also call little dragon, you've got a good year as well. So after all of your strategic wisdom that you've been working through and we've dealt with in the last year, that balances out the horse's speed. So it's going to allow that insight to be turned into implementation. So act on what you already know, and this year will reward you when you use decisive action rooted in discernment. Horse, you would think it's going to be a good year for you, but it's actually kind of neutral and challenging because as the ruling animal, your energy is amplified even more. So if you're a horse and it's a fire horse year, and horses fire in general, it's very, very intense. So it's powerful, but it's also volatile. So pace yourself, channel that momentum intentionally to avoid exhaustion or emotional stress.
Wear all the black.
Wear all the black, bring on all the water.
Channel your inner New Yorker.
Yeah, exactly. For you Rams, it's a good year. The goat and the horse are harmonious partners, and they support each other in creativity, emotional flow, and collaboration. So lean into your support buddies. It's a good year for cooperative growth rather than struggling by yourself. For the monkey, it's a neutral year. The monkey's clever, adaptive nature doesn't clash or align too strongly with the horse energy. So just stay focused. Don't get monkey mind, as we call it. Too many ideas without follow through will dilute your progress. All right, almost to the end. We've got rooster, dog, and pig left. So for you roosters, it's a neutral year. The rooster's precision doesn't really sync with the horse's spontaneity, but the conflict, it's not necessarily leading to conflict. So just let go of your perfectionism, try and go with the flow, and that flexibility will create more success than trying to stay in control. Dogs, Diana, this one's for you. You're going to have a good year, girl. The dog and the horse share aligned values, that loyalty, justice, and integrity, which creates support for all three of you. And that strengthens your trusted relationships. So for you, favor teamwork and a shared strategy or purpose.
Awesome.
Then for all my piggies out there, I'm a pig. We are having a neutral year because pig's easygoing nature, it's not harmed by horse's energy, but the excess of fire can lead to like too much easygoingness. We could just get a little too laid back. So enjoy your life, but do it with intention. Kind of do things within moderation to keep things balanced and sustainable. Awesome. There are my little zodiac tips.
I love, love, love that. So if anyone is feeling super and deeply connected to this conversation, what's the one thing you want them to take away?
I think it's really about this year being transformative. I want you to go into the year with courage, but again, keep your hands on the reins. Don't let the horse get too far ahead. Be intentional with everything and just try and stay grounded as much as you can because it's going to be hot this year.
I think knowing your animal and what you just shared is also really insightful, right? And maybe you aren't being like lit up, and that's okay, but just know how to work with that horse energy, I think is really, really, really helpful.
Yeah. Again, in Feng Shui, everything ebbs and flows. It's an energy flow. Nothing is static. So your animal is not the end all be all of you. And that's not how you're going to approach every single situation. And just because it's a fire horse year doesn't mean that the entire year is going to feel, the momentum is going to always go forward. It's really about working with what you're feeling in the moment and throughout the year and knowing what your tendencies are when it comes to dealing with those types of situations.
So for the listeners that maybe want to find you or learn more about your work, connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
You could check out my website. It's mcbrieninteriors.com. I am on Instagram at Tori McBrien. However, part of my strategy is to become more visible there. So I'm putting some fire horse momentum into being more present on Instagram. So you'll see more there. And also I'll say that I'm part of an organization called the International Feng Shui Guild, where there are plenty of experts specifically in the Chinese Zodiac. It's a great place to get more information on Feng Shui in general because there are a lot of schools of thought of Feng Shui. The one I've studied and trained in is called BTB, But there are a lot of other schools of thought. No one's right or wrong or anything like that. It's just different perspectives. So it's a great place to kind of dip your toes in and find out what speaks to you.
Awesome. So reach out to Tori if you guys have any additional questions. And Tori, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and for helping us see that energy, cycles, and intention aren't actually abstract concepts, that they're tools we can use to support ourselves in real life and in grounded ways. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Diana.
So thank you for being here with me on Women's Wellness Authority. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might be feeling this shift and wondering what it means. Following the show on YouTube or your favorite listening platform helps me continue building this community, and I'm so grateful for every woman who chooses to be part of it. And if you have a moment to leave a review, it helps more women discover the space and feel supported. So until next time, stay curious, stay aligned, but most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Women's Wellness Authority. If today's conversation inspired you, shifted your perspective, or sparked something within you, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it the most. Have a story of your own or something you'd like to share? I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Women's Wellness Authority. Please note the content shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your health and wellness decisions. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone.